also.
Going back also to the team, how many times have we spoken to someone and you might not have been able to come across to the family, but then I was able to, or vice versa. Mm-hmm. The patients, the families are not listening to, it's like we are having a gap in that communication and understanding on where we are. Mm-hmm. And then having that team, because then as the doctor, you are speaking on the phone with them, making sure that we are discussing where we are in the prognosis, right? Mm-hmm. The nurse at the bedside supports that family to continue conveying that message. But then sometimes we need reinforcement, right? Mm-hmm. We need the chaplain because the pre-bereavement or the pre-grief that they are experiencing is not allowing them to understand where we are. And many times it stems from a spiritual point. Mm-hmm. It stems from different beliefs that has happened in the past, previous experiences, a distrust for the medical establishment. Mm. And then it takes sometimes, not sometimes, I would say all the time, it takes different people to convey the same message in different ways, from the social work to our CNA, to the chaplain, to the nurse, and then it's like inching just a little bit of understanding at a time. Mm-hmm. And there might be some resentment as well as we are talking about those important milestones as we are going through it, right? But then by having different people discuss the details and what to expect, at the end, that caregiver is in better standing.
Yeah, I mean, it's all about getting, I agree. The team is indispensable. I love hospice for that. I love hospice. I love, oh my goodness, when you work with a fantastic team of people and each one brings what they need to bring at the very moment. And you're right, there may be a conversation where you reach someone. I would say prognostically, or when I'm giving the information, honestly, it just needs to be delivered. But we've certainly tag teamed very well together, where maybe I know, that I'm delivering a message that is particularly brutal, not because I'm trying to be that way, but I have to impart this information quickly to you. If you don't,
it's important.
It's very important. And if you don't understand it, I know you will not get the closure you need. And we're right at that moment, and you don't see it. And then you'll come and you'll help shore it up and make sure that there's another side. So we work together in that way, and that's a flawless relationship there. Mm-hmm. And then also with the chaplains, having that spiritual side of things, I cannot say enough good about chaplaincy and how they bring an element to the team. They even help us, processing what we need to process when we do our interdisciplinary meeting, and they're bringing an aspect of something, and it helps me process, because each one of these patients, each one of these deaths, each one of these families, it may be contentious. It may be angry. It may be, just pure pain. It may be all sorts of facets, and we absorb all of it. We're supposed to be, and I believe that we should be very calm and very strong for the families. Doesn't mean we can't express ourselves, but having the chaplain help release that too is very important. And then social work too is brilliant, and CNAs are important too. Yeah. But I agree with the idea of the team approach and how that helps shore up the communication along the way. But that's true. So again, an example of a great hospice, we've talked about, so good clinical, from the top down, being aligned in the mission, having administrators who are running things who understand clinical innately. They've been there out in the trenches. They're not going to put someone out to do something that they themselves have not experienced or done. You know, I believe in that for leadership. I think that's very important. If you're going to step up and be in that role, understand what you're asking people to do. Understand, you know, what you're asking people to do, and are you giving them the supplies to do it? Are you giving them the resources, you know? Or are you relegating them down to the very minimum, but still expecting them to accomplish? So from the top down, the alignment, clinical, and the communication is very key. What other thoughts? Do you have other thoughts? I mean, you know, very good hospice or a tough hospice. You know, one of the big things that we care about is avoiding a service failure.
Service failure.
Yes.
So that you only get one chance to do this. You know, the patient dies, and there is no other chance to make it the best experience possible. We know that having a loved one die or being terminally ill creates all kinds of pain. But then all of us are going in that same, all of us are going to die. And every time that there is an experience, you have to create the best experience possible. While it was painful, having the support and having the know-how of somebody carrying you is so very important. I was just thinking a little bit about my life.
I was just thinking that we're in sync. I wondered about your own experiences. You've been through it before.
Yes. So
and you've seen where the gaps are.
Absolutely.
I mean, you've worn every hat.
Yes. So even I'm going back to 20 years ago and understanding that the experience that I was experiencing at that moment was life-changing for me. I had a baby that was born at 23 weeks, 1 pound, 6 ounces, 11 and a half inches long. It was my first time being pregnant, my first time having a child. And having the right support in the NICU was what turned me into becoming a nurse. Because having that support and that communication and in understanding where things were at and having the professionals carry me was invaluable. It not only inspired me to become a nurse because I wanted to become that nurse that was imparting so much knowledge to me and supporting me emotionally. But also now in end-of-life care, which is my specialty, I love hospice. I understand how important that is, that communication, that support. And in hospice, as you mentioned, this is what we do. We support it from different angles, and one of us is going to reach that person if we are doing it right.
With that, one thought about good hospice versus not so great, or good end-of-life care versus not so great. We've touched on a lot of different aspects so far, and I kind of enumerated them, but another aspect is believing also that we were talking about like the 3 medication philosophy, or believing that you should really expand out the armamentarium and kind of open things up for people so that you can do different things for people. I have a case, that I had a case in my mind where we were held back. This is before in a prior hospice, but held back from being able to run a drip on someone. There was a complete lack of understanding about the fact that this would really be a game changer for this patient who had metastatic cancer. What do you think about that too? That's another aspect of a not so great hospice environment. when you're not able to practice as freely or do what you need to do for the patients, you are saying you get one opportunity to do things and to get it right and to medicate the right way and to get all the elements right. And communication is key. Being supported is key. But, part of being supported is, as I said before, having the resources or having the ability to do things
the right way.
Yeah.
In order also to understand that, we need to go back as of why hospice companies do that.
Yeah, that's true.
And it stems to money. It stems to the reimbursement that we get from Medicare. The majority of our patients are Medicare patients, and there is a per diem per day. And there is so much out of that per diem per day that has to be paid, from the nurse to everyone's salary to all the supplies and everything else, that in order for them to become profitable or more profitable, they need to make sure that they have someone that it is not full-time, that it is as a PRN basis or as needed. Okay, we have nurses that are as needed, right? But they carry a caseload. Also, having a doctor that it is not a full-time either. So they are not vested. Many of the physicians in hospice, they have their own practice. They do this on the side. And so then not having the backing and the commitment, then things falls through the cracks. So I think that understanding why hospices do what they do, I understand it, but then there is ways that you can do it right, and we are doing it right.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, there's financial reasons, but you can still do it well within those financial reasons. But I agree with you, that drives the mentality, again, because dying is an afterthought. Medicare is essentially, a big insurance payer. If these insurances came around to understanding really that end-of-life care kind of should be put at the forefront. This is going to be kind of maybe a contentious statement, but I mean, end-of-life care should be put at the forefront. And then from there, by extension, we should backtrack and then figure things out. It's a guarantee. It's not a guarantee that it's a guarantee that you're going to pass. So really making sure you understand what's going on there and preparing and having things in place to make sure that happens in a peaceful fashion, and you're managing and you're doing the right things there. And then by extension, trying to do everything you can afterwards to really make sure people have a healthy and have longevity and have a healthy life. Right now, it's just half the equation. Okay, let's do everything we can and make sure we've got preventative care in place and all these other types of cares in place to support patients in the quest to get longevity. But no one's paying attention to the other end, where that's actually where resources and money and time should be put.
Well, mental health right now is a big problem in our society, and a lot of mental health stems from prior experiences that triggers different conditions, and then it's like you get stuck. Those particular patients, they get stuck in the past, and grief triggers that as well. So by doing things the right way, the right support, the right communication, the right support system, it ensures that things are better, because those are the people that are left behind after the patient passes.
Have you had talk to me, have you had any personal, what's been your, that might be a tricky subject, but what's been your toughest experience in a work environment in hospice?
I think that in a work environment, to have to not understand the importance of our work, and to have blockage, intentional blockage of delivering the best care for your patient. Mm-hmm. That is my biggest frustration, knowing that that is the right thing to do, but being unable to do it.
Yeah, actually, I would say, I was trying to think for myself when I asked that question. Having your hands tied and knowing that it wasn't entirely, it's not always financial either, is it?
Oh, no. It has personalities. It has also belief systems. Although they might be able to, they have worked in hospice, yet they still not understand the hospice philosophy.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that it's not just financial. Financial is an easy and a pat answer to say, okay, well, we can't do this because the funds aren't there. I think there's a lot of ego and personality in medicine in general, and that a lot of times it's really about not getting a humble response, not getting a humble approach, or really taking some time to think. Someone blocks you in trying to deliver good care, they're not really ultimately, if you're proposing something that's reasonable and trying to talk about how to get that done, and there's just a flat out no, or this is, we don't do that.
We see that with other physicians.
Yes. Well, it's not really just about, mm-hmm. There it becomes an issue of ego. There it becomes an issue of, well, we don't do that. But I was going to say, they're not really empathically thinking about what is it to be that patient. If I were in that patient's shoes, if I were going through this experience at that time, what would I want? And it's interesting to me that we don't have that kind of, that's lacking a little right now in hospice. I was going to ask you what the current state of hospice in your mind was right now. If it was a good state of being, have we regressed, have we not? I'm thinking that hospice in some ways in my mind has gone backwards, slipped a little bit. And I'm thinking that that's because we're not bringing this mentality of what does it feel like? Yeah, what does it feel like to experience these types of losses as a patient? Tremendous pain, symptoms that are uncontrolled, the grief and all the aspects. So that's part of it too. What do you think? How is the current state of hospice right now in your mind? You've seen things. You've been in the business for a long time now. Mm-hmm. What do you think? You think we're in a good place?
No, we are not. Mm-hmm. We are not. I believe that it comes from different angles. It comes from the nursing, the current state of lack of nurses.
Talk about that. We've talked about that. What's driving that? It's hard to recruit right now.
It is very hard to recruit. It is very hard to find the right candidate for end-of-life care. And there's many reasons why. Number one is that there are many nurses that have retired. Usually the nurses that were doing hospice, they were very seasoned and older nurses. And many of those nurses have retired the past few years, and because of the baby boomers, right?
Yeah, and also COVID, I think, made people realize they did not want to work in the same way as before.
Exactly. And how many nurses did we get at the beginning when we were going March of 2020 that would say flat out to me and you, no, I'm not going there. If it's a COVID patient, I'm not going to do that admission. Mm-hmm. So you are dealing with the COVID, retirement. And then another big one is as we continue having so many bigger hospitals and bigger hospital systems, the benefits for the hospitals and the recruitment bonuses are so much, is so much out there in such attractive amounts that that kind of just blows you out of the water.
Yeah,
if you
hospice can't compete.
Hospice cannot compete
Yeah.
because we are usually a small entity. We have a system here in Atlanta that it is offering, $30,000 recruitment bonus for nurses. That is a lot of money.
And I must say also, Atlanta's kind of a different entity. There are a lot of cottage industry hospices. It's not the same model as other states. So, other states, you may have one hospice covering an enormous terrain, and they may have deeper pockets, but hospice still runs tighter margins.
Yeah.
So we're still not competing quite on the level as, big conglomerates that have associated and can offer things to people.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Plus, there's the incentive, like you said. I mean, hospice is, you've got to shift into a different mentality. And if you don't have that mentality, you come in thinking it's just going to be kind of an easy gig. And then you come in and suddenly you find out, I'm dealing with people who are dying. The acuity is very high. The way we manage things, we are managing almost kind of a mini ICU level on some patients type care to make sure that they're prepared to transition well. And, there's wound care, and there are ostomies, and there's Foley management. There's just a lot there that needs to be done. You think someone's coming in thinking it's going to be just, let's just kind of.
Well, the other thing that I also, you trigger my mind in reference also to even the documentation for the staff that is coming in the door. Usually they document toward the betterment of the patient. It's a complete shift the way you think. Whenever it comes to hospice care, you have to capture that decline in order for also to be reimbursed correctly. So it is a specialty, just like cardiologists, endocrinologists. We are a specialty, but I don't think that we are recognized as that.
No, we're not. And, we've had that many times, that comes up especially with families where there might be someone clinical. Actually, not someone clinical, often a doctor. And they'll come in and they'll say, you know what, I know how to run the show. And so there will be kind of, again, not a conflict, but they'll be proposing things, and you'll say, no, that's not the right way to do it. And that's not going to help. That's actually going to hinder the situation. But those are tough situations, I agree. But we're not recognized, meaning that someone like that, especially if they're a subspecialist, they don't see, just in general, people are not recognizing the end of life as the end of life.
But however, they do recognize gynecological services at the beginning of life, right?
Yes.
So
we need to package it. The end of life needs to be reframed. I mean, this has been a big thing for me for a long time, which is why I've gotten so passionate. It needs to be reframed as an entity. And then it requires specialization. And, we're not even at that point yet. Even though there is, a board and things like that, we're still not at the point where that specialization has taken root in a way where you see with other entities. And, medicine has been very, for me, I mean, when I look kind of at the last 120 years, I think medicine's been very cardiocentric. So, that's where that specialization took root. And there's a lot of evidence-based medicine and studies that occur. We are now in areas, now we need to become more neurocentric. Not neurology per se, but really from the brain and cognition and consciousness. So we need to start our focus on that. We really need to understand why dementias occur, and we need to start understanding more about the mind. We don't have a good understanding of that. And then the other area that I think we need to focus on is end of life. I don't know what the I couldn't call it neurological. I might have to say, mortality-based medicine. That would maybe be the way of describing it, but starting to focus on that. And if we shifted into that, we could get to a better place with hospice care. We could get to that elevated place, because actually, circling back, you were saying we're not in a good state of being right now.
Absolutely not.
Yeah. And go ahead. Tell me more why on that, because you were, you were kind of starting the process there and telling me, but what were some other thoughts there?
Yeah, I think staffing was one.
Yes, staffing.
Also, the reimbursement from from Medicare, and also the insurance companies, because I just wanted to also to mention that insurance companies oftentimes use Medicare as the mirror for reimbursement, and it's not enough.
No,
it's just not enough.
No.
But they use that as the mirror and that's the standard. And so then it really doesn't matter whether you go with a provider, an insurance carrier, not to mention any, and then you have Medicare. Is basically the same thing. They are going to offer the same thing, and the patient at the end of the day is not getting more.
Well, sometimes they don't allow commercial insurances. We had a patient recently. We were trying to do an LVAD. We've done a few,
yes,
and trying to get an LVAD on service with us because we could do it, and we were willing to provide the right care. Even we've done management with specialized ionotropes or cardiac drips before and things. So this patient had some drips in place and some measures that were needed. We were willing to do it, but the insurance did not agree,
And we couldn't carve it out.
We could not carve it out again. And, you wonder what ends up happening in many of these situations. Again, like you said, there are financial reasons driving what's being decided. So, financial. Or insurance, staffing for the state of affairs in hospice. Yeah. I will say, thank goodness.
I think competition too, because like here in the state of Georgia, it is an open market. It's not a certificate of need. And what that means is that other states, they have a certificate of need, which is only one hospice company managing multiple areas, which then you have the same staff that are working in the industry, and you can kind of just package them together. Here in Atlanta, with over 200 hospices in the state of Georgia, it makes it hard to recruit, not only because there's not enough, but then it's the same people kind of
jumping
ship. It is crazy. So the current, and I think that reimbursement, I think that is a big reason why our state of hospice is not where it needs to be. Yeah, something more has to offer, and I think the commitment from companies, from nurses, doctors, need to be toward that specialty in order to be recognized too.
We're afraid of letting go of, I alluded to it in my introduction. We have a cult of life. People are obsessed with longevity. I mean, you look at other podcasts out there, they talk about how can you, some, if you listen to certain people, it's all about prolonging, not aging. How do I optimize my health so I don't age? I don't physically age. I don't look like I age. And it's this obsession. We're afraid of letting go of that in favor of going, well, what if we allow these processes to happen? What if we embrace them even, shockingly? In our last one, the ALS, you can actually, you may not like what it is, but there can be a powerful experience in that, and we're meant to go through it. And it would be interesting if we could embrace that more collectively, because then that's that shift that needs to happen, so that then, you're honoring the end of life, and you're paying for things that actually are meaningful at the end of life, because you appreciate the process, and you say, just like you said, the birthing process, we're willing to expend, to spend money there, or try to make sure that that's a good process, low mortality rates and things like that. So we have our focuses there, and make sure that there's a healthy outcome. Make sure that our children are born, that the mothers are okay. We're not doing that on the other end. But that's, again, because of a simplistic model of how we die. And we need to get back to figuring that part out.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, that wraps up our conversation for today. And stay tuned for more episodes. They will drop on Tuesdays at 3. And please like and subscribe and share. And please let anybody know who is interested in this kind of content. Pass on the video. And we will provide links below also. Thank you so much. I appreciate you talking with me, and we'll have more conversations.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Thanks.